So yeah, it's been another week. Welcome back to Devlog number 2 for my game. This week I have been solely focusing on creating a character and all of his animations, and I also did some backgrounds, and I'm pretty happy with it. So you get to see all that today. But thanks for tuning in. Yeah, here we go. My first attempt at a character was tragic. I started off by creating a standing character. He was looking a little plumpy for my liking, but other than that, he wasn't terrible. But then I started animating him, and that's when things turned to shit. He just looks awful. Nothing more to say. And he looks even worse when you put him in the game. So scrap that. Back to the drawing board. Now my second character I created was this cute, skinny looking dude rocking leaf undies. And this lad was definitely a lot better looking than the other guy, and his walk animations weren't half bad. However, the problem is he doesn't really give off the rough, hardy survivor look I was sort of aiming for, so yeah, back to the drawing board. Now my final attempt was a lot better. The dude looked buff and sexy. And he just, oh, look at him. Look at him. Oh, he's a sexy boy. So, yeah. Next I added in some dust animations that appear whenever the character jumps or runs. So, bam. There we go. We now have a buff character complete with fluid animations. So, at the moment, the background is looking a little, non-existent, so it's time to do some backgrounds. Now the plan is to create multiple different biomes, and I figured that there would be a range of distant mountains that would always be visible no matter where you were in the game. So this seemed like a good place to start. After a couple of hours of drawing, I got a result I was happy with. The color is a little bit off, but I fixed that later on. Next, I started making changes to the ground, as a solid green block is just not going to cut it. I came up with this dirt ground topped with some rocks and a bit of grass, and it's looking pretty good. So this was the point where I just hit a wall. I wanted to create the idea of this distant forest in the background, but I just could not get it right for the life of me. I firstly tried to make some distant hills covered with forest, and basically they just looked terrible. I then tried to cover that up with a couple layers of trees and forest, but it just was not doing it for me. I then tried to add in a lake reflecting the mountains in the background, but again it looked weird and it just didn't sit well within the scene. The colors were all off, and it wasn't working. And at this point, I realized that I had wasted over 10 hours on absolute garbage. I had nothing to show for it. So I decided to scrap all the trees in the lake and just go back to square one. So I instead decided to work on a layer of closer hills. It took me a while to get the ball rolling on this one, but I found my rhythm and started adding in some, rolling hills with some boulders and rocks, and I finally came up with another asset I was happy with. So yeah, looking good. Afterwards I took a couple days break until I had enough courage to, tackle the trees again. And I realized that most of the assets I had made prior were incredibly dense and consistent, and as a result the scene looked messy. So I just started removing trees from the background, and the result actually came out alright. I added another layer of closer trees, and everything was starting to feel a lot more realistic. The only problems I had with the scene now was a lack of scale and lighting consistency. The mountains in the background are supposed to look distant and faded, but due to my color choice they appear close. I also used darker, more pinker colors that give off the idea of sunset. To fix this, all I had to do was change some of the colors to a lighter, more faded color palette, and this made a huge difference. So yeah, the very last thing I added was another layer of closer mountains. I also added in a nice parallel effect, which gives the scene a lot more depth. So there we go, bam, background done, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty chuffed with the results. I think everything is looking great. Obviously, there are things I still need to implement to the background, like some clouds, a day-night cycle with visible sun and moon, and countless other small details. However, for this stage, I think the background's pretty fucking good. I'm actually really happy with it. So, yeah, the aim for next week is to hopefully implement a bow into the game. I feel like this will be pretty complicated to create, as the aim is to, make the bow aim towards the player's mouse. This will mean that I'll have to create an entire trajectory system for the arrows, which will be quite complex, I can imagine. I'll also have to create entirely new animations for the character when he's holding the bow, so that'll be fun. But yeah, that's all I've got time for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and don't forget to subscribe. We're almost at a whopping 5 subscribers, which is just insane. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I will see you next week.